descend upon us assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests we have committed to our church. Amen. Can you ring the bell? Very well, we may commence.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
The member for Budalangi. You have another name. We are also called Sauti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to present a public petition number 001 of 2018 by the residents of Budalang constituency regarding recruitment exercise by the Kenya Defence Forces conducted in February 2018. Mr. Speaker, I, the undersigned, on behalf of residents of Budalang constituency, draw the attention of the House to the following. That Article 27 of the Constitution provides that every person is equal before the law and has the equal right to equal protection and equal benefit of the law. That Article 41 of the Constitution Article 41 of the Constitution provides that every person has the right to fair labor practices. That on 12th February 2018, the Kenya Defence Forces conducted a recruitment drive in Bunyala sub-county. That during the said recruitment exercise, Mr. Speaker, it is alleged that only 2 persons were recruited in the Bunyala sub-county, and notes with concern that Budalang constituency comprised of 3 divisions. Hence, the recruitment may have not captured the 3 divisions. Further, noting that if Kenya Defence Forces were to recruit persons per constituency, therefore, have to take into account the 3 divisions. That the Kenya Defence Force intended to recruit about 3,000 persons from all over the country. Now that every sub-county qualifies to be allocated equal number of opportunities in such recruitment exercise. That the issues in respect of which this petition is made are not pending before any court of law, constitutional or legal body. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Department Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations, 1, recommend immediate investigations into the allegations and intervenes to have this matter resolved. 2, recommend that every constituency be allocated equal share of employment opportunities during the Kenya Defence Forces recruitment drive. And 3, makes any other order or direction that it deems fit in the circumstances of the matter. And your petitioners will ever pray. Presented this House by Honorable Raphael B. S. Wanjala, the Member of Parliament for Budalang constituency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, honourable members, you know, that's why, well, I appreciate that the Honourable Wanjala has been out of Parliament for a number of years. So even when he talked, I'm sure he must have sought advice from somebody. I think it's only fair that, you know, when you see somebody is getting a bit, he may have forgotten some of these things, he'll be reminded. That is why we have a system whereby cabinet secretaries would be called to before that committee on every Tuesday, because that is something that should, in the old days, which Honorable Wanjala remembers, they used to be called questions by private notice. Now, under the petition process, the committee has up to 60 days. So if you wanted some redress, so it's like you are swimming in the ocean heading towards nowhere. If you say that this is a matter, because you say it was on 12th of February, if I heard you correctly, 12th of this month. So, you know, there's a kind of thing that should have been brought by way of the questions that go before the committee, so that the cabinet secretary, through the office of the leader of majority, is able to come and explain, listen to the issues that you've raised, so that as before the exercise closes, some form of redress or suggestions for redress are made. But since you have gone the route of petition, Honorable Ajala, it's, I think the petition will be committed to the committee, and the committee is required to listen to you and those residents, and within 60 days, or such longer time as they may request the House to extend. So you can see the danger. Well, I'm trying to tell you all this because it is possible for the committee to say within the 60 days they have not had everybody, because they may need to go to Budalangi to listen to those villagers and say what is it that how did it happen in this particular way. But you see, I'm just I'm giving this advice for free because
Thank you,
I can
Mr.
appreciate
Speaker.
that the issue that the honourable member wants to raise are issues which needed immediate intervention.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your advice. But, Mr. Speaker, there's nothing we do here without seeking advice from the officers of Parliament. They advised so. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask your indulgence as a matter of urgency that if you can do it within 14 days, if it can be done, Mr. Speaker, under your order, when you order the committee, these issues can be resolved, Mr. Speaker. I was advised by your officers, Mr. Speaker. I know a lot of things have changed and will also keep on changing, Mr. Speaker, as things keep on changing. So I ask for your indulgence. As a matter of urgency, Mr. Speaker, we are disadvantaged. And you know Budalang has had very many majors, captains, and so on. Today we have none, and they are recruiting only 2 people. Mr. Speaker, I ask for your indulgence. And you know Budalang, we are at the border of Kenya and Uganda. So we need officers so that we are protected.
My sympathies, Honorable Ajala, but you see, what you're asking me to do is not really, and actually lodge a question and consult also the leader of the majority party, so that within the period that you are suggesting, the cabinet secretary will be able to appear before the committee and address those issues. I have sympathies for the issues you are raising, because they are just issues that can happen in any part of the country. Honorable Ajala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to withdraw this petition and follow the channel, Mr. Speaker, you have directed. I'll do exactly that, Mr. Speaker, as a matter of urgency, and I hope you will also prioritize it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I am not the one who does the prioritization, but I'm sure you see, you will consult the leader of majority party, because he will be able to deal with the cabinet secretary and all the officers that perhaps will be able to respond to that. But also, you can see the chairman of the committee. He's happily, he knows you very well, but you can see he's not even looking up, because he could see that you have, you know, in Swahili they say, ulikuwa mezama. You had gone the wrong route. So, but Honorable Ajala, because that issue, I think, is a matter that needs to be addressed very well. I'll, grant leave to withdraw. Please go and have the matter reframed by way of a question, so that then the cabinet secretary, they can agree with the leader majority when the cabinet secretary can appear before the committee. So that when the cabinet secretary appears before the committee, you are also there to hear what explanations they are giving, so that you can probe the secretary and any other officer who may be accompanying her or him, as the case may be. But I've seen some members of the House, some committees don't want to be addressed by some other officers who have been established within the executive. You know, then sometimes you may well find that some of the people who accompany cabinet secretaries are actually the people with the information that you are looking for. And then you say you only want to be addressed by a cabinet secretary, not by a principal secretary, not, but yet those are the people who have the information. You know, you must always weigh what it is, unless you want to do some little bit of politics, which I think is normal for, because after all you are politicians. To be seen to be, there's nothing that you also want to raise on that matter, Honorable Wanyonyi. The matter of Obudalangi, you may have some blunt relations, but no, don't make it a village matter. Let the honorable member for Obudalangi is a fairly active member. I have knowledge of him. No, which point? You cannot make a point to who? To Honorable Wajala? No. You can pull him to the back corner there and give him. No, those things, those are village issues which you can discuss quietly there. Let's move to the next petition. But maybe before we move to that, Honorable Wajala, I think, please just do that because I think you have a pertinent issue. But before we move on, honorable members, let me recognize the presence in the public gallery of students and pupils from the following institutions: Chebunyo High School from Chepalungu constituency, Bomet County, and Mabaye Primary School, Katanga constituency, Muranga County. They are welcome to observe proceedings in the National Assembly. The next petition is by the Honorable Patrick Mariro.
Thank you very much.
Member for Laikipia West.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And like Honorable Wajara, I have considered my matter, and Ruti, Iguamete, and Oromoran wards have experienced increased cases of attacks by elephants, resulting in loss of life and livestock and destruction of crops and property in these areas. And four, that the Kenya Wildlife Service wardens are evidently overwhelmed by the situation, resulting to delay in responding to distress calls from the residents. Concerned that most part of Rumuruti, Malomanet, Shamanei Forest, and some private conservancies remain unfenced, hence making it easier for the animals to stray more often. 5, that residents of Laikipia West constituency have demonstrations against the inaction or inadequate inaction by the Kenya Wildlife Service. 6, that the year 2016 and 2018, more than 3 persons have lost their lives after being attacked by elephants, and further that the wild animals have caused destruction to private property. However, the families of victims have not received any compensation from the Kenya Wildlife Services as yet. 7, that effort to resolve this matter have been futile. 8, that the matter in respect of which this petition is made is not pending before any court of law or constitutional body. Therefore, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, 1, recommends that the KWS compensates victims and affected families for loss of lives and destruction and damage caused to schools and schools affected to be fenced using electric fence. 2, intervenes to ensure that the relevant government agencies expeditiously erects perimeter fences along Rumuruti, Malmanet, Shamanai forests, and private conservancies to keep off the elephants and wild animals from straying to human settlements. Recommends that the Kenya Wildlife Services increase the number of posts and camps in the area for efficient surveillance and quick response to distress calls whenever elephants stray to human settlements. And finally, makes any other order or direction that it may deem fit in the circumstances of the matter. And your petitioners will ever pray. Presented by Patrick Mariro, the member for Laikipia West constituency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Mwatate.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia hii fursa. Vile watu wa Taita haswa Mwatate wanaunga mkono malalamishi na kilio cha hawa wanyama, vile wanaharibu, wanaua, lakini bado hakuna malipo yote. Na kitu ambacho kimetushangaza zaidi, watu wanabebeshwa mzigo juu ya mzigo. Hawa wanyama ndovu wanatolewa Laikipia na tena kuletwa kule Tsavo. Badala kumaliza tabu hapo Laikipia, wanatuletea hiyo tabu kule sehemu za Taita. Tunaomba tafadhali, wakati mnaangalia hili swala la malalamishi, jaribu kuangalia, tayari ukiangalia orodha ya yale malipo, Kenya nzima sehemu za Taita ndio wanadai hela nyingi zaidi. Lakini unakuta tena hawa ndovu wanatolewa kwengine, wanaletwa huko kwetu. Ni kilio kikubwa, tumepoteza watu wengi, sasa hii twafa na njaa kwa sababu ya wanyama. Hata juzi ndio tumeelezea watu wangu kule Mwatate, katiba inaruhusu. Wakati umetishiwa na mnyama, tafadhali muleni, ndio labda pengine hichi kilio KWS angalau watamka kidogo. Kwa hii fursa, Mheshimiwa Spika, ninashukuru sana. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Leader of Majority.
Mr. Speaker, as I support that petition, I think the best thing our colleagues, members of parliament, should do is to get hold of the Kenya Wildlife Act that we passed in the 11th parliament. And we introduced the necessary amendments. Because, Mr. Speaker, what's happening in this country is that people they perish, they see the wild animals more important than the human life. That if you kill a lion or you kill an elephant, Mr. Speaker, the penalty is very, very high. 20 years, I think, 20, 30 years in jail. But everywhere, from the mountain to the coast to the pastoralist, these animals are causing a lot of havoc. Mr. Speaker, now there's drought, and animals and both the livestock and human life is at risk. And when our animals cross into the national park, Meru National Park, Tsavo National Park, our people are arrested in tons by KWS. They are arraigned in court, animals are killed, they use choppers and aircrafts, fixed wing, to chase animals. Speaker, we must come and ask ourselves the moral question. Which one do we value? Do we value human life and their livelihood, or we value wildlife? I really pity the member for Taveta. There's too many problems with the elephants. But the Minister for Tourism was, Mr. Speaker, officiating the transportation of elephants. And I asked myself, is it so big that a government minister and everybody must go and, officiate the loading of one elephant into a truck? The Speaker, Speaker Honorable, Charles Kilozo comes from the savannah. He comes from the savannah. He is my neighbor. So he is not a victim of wildlife. We are the pastoralists who move from one national park to the other, from one mountain to the desert, because of our livelihood. Mr. Speaker, we are victims of the weather. We are victims of wild animals. We are victims of Al-Shabaab. We are victims of any bad government policy. Even cattle rustling. If you go to West Pokot, you go to Northeastern, if they're Baringo, if there are communities that are victims of everything. So I really want to join my colleagues who are talking about wild animals. You are lucky, your only problem is the elephant. Us, we have too many problems. And I think we need to relook at, as a house, as members of parliament, the current legislation and see if we can put in law something that can safeguard the wildlife animal and that can safeguard the the human life and their livestock. In fact, we must find a middle ground where, when we are faced with a severe drought, it becomes a government policy to open up national parks for livestock to graze, Mr. Speaker. But I really support that, and I'm sure the Minister for Tourism and Wildlife is listening. Please do not transport wild animal from one place to the other. No community is better than the other. If you are removing from Abadeas, why are you taking it to Tavetas? And these are the Taita community is one of the most habitable community, very good community to live with. Because some of us have got farms and our animals are in Taita Taveta. And I'm sure what the member is saying is something which is very true, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Many of you don't have the staying power. You sit here for 30 minutes and you are off. I'm assuming, of course, you represent people in various ways, including in the lobbies and other places. But honourable members, I just want to plead with you that we remember a petition comments are only limited to very few people, so that this is not the opportunity to tell us about all those stories about it, because I can see the member for Samburu South North wants to tell us about maybe the snakes which could be there. Member for Kibwezi West, are you being harassed by crocodiles or which ones now?
We are actually a victim of all, Mr. Speaker, crocodiles and otherwise. I think I was just rising to support the petition by the honorable member and simply say, I think this is a question of where there's mismatch in resources. Whenever we are calling for tourists to come to Kenya, we talk ably about, the big five. But yet when the tourism industry generates funds and it goes to things like the Tourist Trust Fund, there's no linkage between that and fortifying things like claims which are within the Wildlife Act. So KWS, which has to come here and ask for budget, I think year on year is not receiving funds for that particular purpose. And that is why we have all these backlogs which are taking place. So I think the majority leader ably presented and said we look for ways. I think one of such ways is looking at the budgetary support and simply doing a linkage between the trust fund and these wildlife adventures. The same thing we did with the telecommunication industry by establishing the mobile fund, by creating a levy over the turnovers. And I think this would greatly take this away, because as he said, people in Kibwezi West, the greater Kibwezi, Makueni are grappling this as well as the rest of the country. So I look forward to actually ventilating over this petition, because I think it covers a lot more of Kenya. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The petition will be referred to, or is referred to, the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, where all these many ideas could be presented and be canvassed, so that eventually the committee will be able to bring to the House a report, hopefully, which contains recommendations one way or other about the ideas that will be or have been presented to the committee. So, honourable members, I think let's not begin the debate, because when the committee brings their report, that's when you will debate. But even more importantly, if you think you have some ideas to prefer, please avail yourself before the committee when the Honorable Mariru will be presenting the petition. And it is possible that it could be accompanied by a hold of supporters and the people he represents and other stakeholders. So even members who have ideas about this could also appear before the committee to enrich the report that will come from the committee. That is the whole idea of a petition going before a committee. So with the House, when debating or adopting the report, is discussing and adopting from a position of knowledge and information. We'll move to the next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Next.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Proceed. Which one?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to give notice of the following motion that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 28, subsection 4, this has its regular sittings on Tuesday, March 13th, 2018. Second, Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion that pursuant to the provisions of Section 13 of the Public Appointments Approval Act 2011 relating to the extension of period for the consideration of nominees for appointment to a public office, this House resolves to extend the period for consideration of the nominees submitted by His Excellency the President for the appointment to the office of the Solicitor General by a further period of 10 days from 7th March 2018. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Next. Honourable members, I'm assuming that every member is in possession of a supplementary order paper, which was necessitated, and I approved it by the fact of several questions that could not have been put in the morning sitting. That's the only reason, the only essence of that supplementary order paper. So we proceed. So
Order number 8, special motion, approval for appointment of principal secretaries for state departments for devolution and planning. Question to be put.
Member Boyata, you know, it's good to remind you constantly that, yeah, you are in the chamber. Honourable members, debate on this motion was concluded in the morning sitting, and what remains is for the question to be put, which I hereby do, that this House adopts a report of the Departmental Committee on Finance and Planning on the vetting of nominees for appointment as principal secretaries laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27th, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 155, Clause 3, Paragraph B of the Constitution, approves the appointment of Dr. Julius Muya and Mr. Nelson Marwa as Principal Secretaries, State Department for Planning and State Department for Devolution, respectively. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, special motion, approval for appointment of Principal Secretary for State Department for Gender. Question to be put.
Again, honourable members, what remains is for the question to be put, which I hereby do, that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare on the vetting of nominee for appointment as Principal Secretary, laying on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 155, Clause 3, Paragraph B of the Constitution, approves the appointment of Ms. Safina Kwekwe Tsungu as the Principal Secretary, State Department for Gender. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Those of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Next.
Order number 10, special motion, approval for appointment of Principal Secretary for State Department for Health. Question to be put.
Honourable members, again, debate was concluded. What remains is for the question to be put, which I hereby do, that this House adopts a report of the Departmental Committee on Health on the vetting of a nominee for appointment as Principal Secretary, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 155, Clause 3, Paragraph B of the Constitution, approves the appointment of Mr. Peter Kiblagat Tum as the Principal Secretary, State Department for Health. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as contrary opinion.
The Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security on the vetting of persons for appointment as principal secretaries, but laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, the appointment of and pursuant to the provisions of Article 155, 3B of the Constitution, approves the appointment of Major General Retired Dr. Gordon Odemo Kialangwa as the Principal Secretary, State Department for Immigration, Border Control, and Registration of Persons. Honorable Speaker, sir, on 30th January 2018, the Honorable Speaker notified the House of the receipt of 29th January 2018 of a message from His Excellency the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces of the Republic of Kenya with respect to appointment of the person to the various positions of Cabinet Secretaries, Principal Secretaries, and of High Commissioners and Ambassadors of the Republic of Kenya. In line with the established procedure, the Clerk of the National Assembly invited the interested members of the public through a public advert to submit their representation by written statement on oath, affidavit, what they may have heard on the suitability or otherwise of the said nominees to the respective departmental committee. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank my very able secretariat available to my committee, and I also want to thank my very able honorable members who worked tirelessly to make sure that this report is concluded on time. On Wednesday, 14 February 2018, pursuant to Section 6(3) of the Public Appointment Parliamentary Approval Act, the clerk in writing invited the nominees for vetting approval hearing. Major General Retired Dr. Gordon Odemo Kialangwa, the nominee for the position of the Principal Secretary for State Department of Immigration, Board Control, and Registration of Persons, appeared before the National Assembly Committee on Administration and National Security on Wednesday, 21st February 2018, in committee room of 4th floor, Continental House, Parliament Building. Mr. Speaker, sir, in conducting the vetting process, the Committee on Administration and National Security examined the nominee against criteria that included the following as set out in the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011. A, academic qualification. B, employment records. C, professional affiliations. D, potential conflict of interest. E, knowledge of relevant subject. F, expectations and key priorities. G, overall suitability of the position. H, integrity. And finally, I, vision and leadership. To fulfill its mandate and facilitate the vetting, Major General Retired Dr. Gordon Odemo Kialangwa submitted relevant documentation and testimonies supporting his case. Honorable Speaker, sir, the committee noted that the nominee had complied with and submitted all the clearance certificate and letters from all the relevant institutions. The committee received 2 written representations from the Third Way Alliance Party of Kenya and the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Submission by Third Way Alliance Party of Kenya. It presented a memorandum wherein it submitted that the committee, while undertaking the exercise of vetting nominees for the position of Principal Secretary, should ensure that the process reflects
the role of the National Assembly adheres to the provisions regulating leadership and integrity, respects the two-thirds gender rule, reflects equitable representation of special interest groups as well as regional and ethnic diversity of the people of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, the committee noted that the representation did not meet the requirements under Section 6 in bracket 9 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011. This section requires that a person submitting a memorandum shall make a written statement on oath. Further, the said memorandum was not directed at the suitability or otherwise of the nominee. Submission by the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. The Kenya National Human Rights on the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights presented a memorandum opposing the nomination of Major General retired Dr. Gordon Okemo Kialangwa as Principal Secretary for the State Department of the Immigration, Border Control, and Registration of Persons on the grounds that the nominee was found capable of impunity and violation of the law in the miscellaneous criminal application number 57 of 2018, wherein the High Court found that the Director of Immigration acted together with the Inspector General of Police and the Director of Criminal Investigation to defeat the orders of the court that they required the relevant Mr. Miguna be produced in court so that he could be dealt with in accordance with the law. Honorable Speaker, the Commission concluded its submission by urging Parliament to reject the nominee on the grounds of gross breach of Articles 3, 10, 28, 29, 40, 43, 45, and 51 of the Constitution. Upon inquiry, Honorable Speaker, the committee observed that there was a subsisting appeal against the order. The legal process is yet to be exhausted. Therefore, there was no final determination of the matter under Article 75 in bracket 2 of the Constitution. Further, it was clear that the matter was subjudiced under Standing Order 89. The memorandum did not take the form of a sworn affidavit required under Section 6 in bracket 9 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011. Indeed, Honorable Speaker, the decision of the committee on the memoranda is similar to the decision you took yesterday, when you were presented with a defective petition for removal of the Chief Justice and the members of the Judicial Service Commission. Honorable Speaker, on Thursday, 22nd February 2018, the committee held a meeting to consider and approve the report on vetting. The committee, having considered the curriculum vitae of the nominee in bracket 3, in bracket A of the Constitution, and Section 8 in bracket 2 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act number 33 of 2011, the committee anonymously recommends that this House approves the nomination and subsequent appointment of Major General retired Dr. Gordon Odebo Kihalangwa to serve as the Principal Secretary, State Department for Immigration, Border Control, and Registration of Persons. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I now call upon my co-chair, John Waluke, to second this report. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Have you moved? Have you moved?
Yes, Honorable Speaker. John Waluke.
No.
I beg to move, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, you beg to move and request the Honorable John Waluke to second. Very well, Honorable Waluke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me chance. I rise to second. Mr. Speaker, I have known Principal Kialangwa for many years. I also served under him. And he's a very strict person, the way I worked with him for those years, like 15 years. He's a no-nonsense man, and he's a man who likes his work. Mr. Speaker, he appeared on our committee, and his CV spoke for itself. And not only the CV, Mr. Speaker, but this is a man who can deliver quality service on his work in this country, Mr. Speaker, as a principal. So, Mr. Speaker, the leadership, the president appointed him as a principal of for immigration, and I'm sure Kialangwa is going to perform. Mr. Kialangwa has done so many courses, Mr. Speaker, according to when we perused his documents, and we were satisfied as a committee of National Security Committee, Mr. Speaker, we were satisfied that Kialangwa is going to deliver. So, Mr. Speaker, he's a man of passion. As we went through with our discussion together, and as a committee, we concluded that we should give him this chance so that he serve this country of ours with that passion that he has. So, Mr. Speaker, I second. Thank you.
Honourable members, I propose a question that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security on the vetting of persons for appointment as principal secretaries, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 155, Clause 3, Paragraph B of the Constitution, approves the appointment of Major General retired Dr. Gordon Odemo Kihalangwa as the Principal Secretary, State Department for Immigration, Border Control, and Registration of Persons. It looks like it's the wish of the House that I put the question, because the reports are already there, anybody who desires to look at it. Very well, I put the question that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security on the vetting of persons for appointment as Principal Secretaries, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 155, Clause 3, Paragraph B of the Constitution, approves the appointment of Major General retired Dr. Gordon Odemo Kihalangwa as the Principal Secretary, State Department for Immigration, Border Control, and Registration of Persons. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next. Next order.
Order number 13, special motion, approval for appointment of Principal Secretary for State Department for Vocational and Technical Training.
Honorable Mele.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Education and Research on the vetting of the nominee for the appointment as Principal Secretary of State Department of Vocational and Technical Training, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 155(3)(b) of the Constitution, approves the appointment of Dr. Kevi Desai as Principal Secretary, State Department for Vocational and Technical Training. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that on February 2018, you communicated the message and directed that our Committee of Education sits and approves the vetting of Dr. Kevi Desai. Mr. Speaker, the committee conducted extensive public participation as provided for under Article 118 of the Constitution and Section 6(4) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011 and Standing Order 45(3). Mr. Speaker, during the approval hearings, the committee held a total of 3 sittings. The nominee appeared before the committee on Wednesday, 21st February 2018 for the oral vetting exercise. Mr. Speaker, in conducting the vetting exercise, the committee was guided by the Constitution of Kenya, the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, number 33 of 2011, and the standing orders. The vetting process involved interviewing the nominee, examining correspondences from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and all the requirements stipulated in the Constitution and the laws governing the appointment. Mr. Speaker, the committee, having taken the candidate through the process, made a number of observations. That the committee, having considered the nominees' questionnaire pursuant to Section 68 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, number 33 of 2011, his curriculum vitae, having had his oral submissions during the approval hearings, made the following observations on his suitability for appointment as Principal Secretary, State Department for Vocational Education and Technical Training, Ministry of Education, Science and Technology. On knowledge, Dr. David Desai holds a Doctor of Philosophy degree in Robotics Control Systems Engineering from Shibaura Institute of Technology, that is Tokyo, Japan, a master's degree from the same institute, and a bachelor's degree in electronic computer engineering from City University, City College, and London Metropolitan University, London, England. So he's very knowledgeable. He also pursued a course in factory automation systems, research and development from Toyohashi, Japan in 1990. Mr. Speaker, until his nomination, he was a chairman and board of a number of organizations. Therefore, he exhibited vast knowledge and experience, having served in various capacities as board chairman and a member of a number of reputable organizations in the private sector and in government institutions dealing with TVET sector, such as United States International University, Technical University of Mombasa, Current Technical Training Institute, for the Deaf and Permanent Working Group on Vocational Training, specifically as chairman of the Working Group on Vocational Training. He is a Kenyan citizen as required by law. So, Mr. Speaker, he has academic credentials and professional training and experience are impressive and in compliance with Section 6(7) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval. He satisfies the requirements of Chapter 6 and therefore on leadership and integrity. Mr. Speaker, having seen his suitability, his knowledge, and his understanding of the sector, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that the committee, having conducted approval hearings and pursuant to Article 1553 of the Constitution and Section 8(1) and 2 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, number 3 of 2011, the committee recommends that this House approves the nomination and subsequent appointment of Dr. David Desai as Principal Secretary, State Department of Vocational Education and Technical Training, Ministry of Education, Science and Technology. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move this motion, and I request Honorable Malulu Injendi to second. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Malulu Injendi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I arise to second this motion. Mr. Speaker, at the time of vetting this candidate, we found that he had not been charged in any court of law. He's a person who has lived within the law and therefore suitable for this particular position. Mr. Speaker, we also wanted to find out whether he has any interest in other things which may arise to some conflict. Mr. Speaker, we found that in all his operations, there was no area that will cause some potential conflict as he takes up this particular position. Mr. Speaker, we also found that this particular candidate is suitable because he's not interested in taking any other gainful employment in the country. We also found that, Mr. Speaker, during our vetting, this is a person who has no interest at all in political matters, political affairs, so as to participate actively. In this case, we found that he does not hold any political position in the country or any political position in any party of the country. Mr. Speaker, we know most of us at this particular age, we find that most of us usually have also some other conflicts as we pursue our functions, our activities, our works. We found that this is a person in most of the positions, as mentioned by the chair, he has been holding, there's none that he has been dismissed for maybe not performing well or for maybe having been in subordination of the office. So, Mr. Speaker, arising from this, we found that this candidate is suitable, and therefore I second his appointment.
Let me propose a question. Honourable members, I propose a question, which is that this House adopts a report of the Departmental Committee on Education and Research on the vetting of nominee for appointment as Principal Secretary, laid to the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 155, Clause 3, Paragraph B of the Constitution, approves the appointment of Dr. Kevit Desai as Principal Secretary, State Department for Vocational and Technical Training. Very well. I confirm that there is still quorum in the House. So I put the question that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Education and Research on the vetting of nominee for appointment as Principal Secretary, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 155, Clause 3, Paragraph B of the Constitution, approves the appointment of Dr. Kevit Desai as Principal Secretary, State Department for Vocational and Technical Training. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 14, special motion.
The nominee has never been dismissed from the office from office for contravention of the provisions of Article 75 of the Constitution, which deals with conduct of state officers that are adversely mentioned in any investigatory report of Parliament or any commission of inquiry. 4, that the nominee has the necessary qualifications and extensive experience in the public service as seen from the documentations presented to the committee. And 5, that the nominee has the right attitude and commitment to serve in the position of which he had been nominated to, as observed from the way he responded to the members' questions on water-related issues during the approval hearing, and that the nominee does not hold any, in any political, does not, Mr. Irungu, and I'm sure many other members do, his PR, Mr. Speaker, is exemplary. And I am sure many members have gone to the Office of the President seeking subdivisions of the administration boundaries, and I'm sure even if he was to decline, he will still decline it with a lot of respect to members of Parliament. And I think Mr. Irungu is up to the task. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I urge this House to approve the nomination of Mr. Joseph Wairaku Irungu, since he has a proven track record in public service, and if appointed, his new role will steer the country and especially the State Department of Water and Sanitation to greater heights. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request Honorable Mrs. Charity Chepkwony, MP Njoro, to second.
Honorable Charity Kadhambi Chepkwony.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I rise to second approval for appointment of Principal Secretary for State Department for Water and Sanitation. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to do addition about how we accessed the candidate and what we came to find out about him. He has rose to different positions since 1989. Currently, he is a Principal Administrative Secretary, Minister of Interior and Coordination of National Government. Mr. Speaker, we observed that Mr. Irungu has been a very hardworking person. We also found that he is a team player, he is a team working person, he is hardworking. He demonstrated passion to work in the docket of water and sanitation. Another thing, Mr. Speaker, we found about the candidate. He has been hardworking, that he has awarded himself, he has gotten honors and awards because of his hard working in the different sectors and the ministries and for many years. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to support, to second that the Assembly approves his appointment for this position, and he is going to work for us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, honourable members, I propose a question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on the vetting of nominee for appointment to Principal Secretary, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 155, Clause 3, Paragraph B of the Constitution, approves the appointment of Mr. Joseph Wairago Irungu as Principal Secretary, State Department of Water and Sanitation. Seems to be the mood in the House. I put the question, and I confirm that there's quorum. I therefore put the question that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on the vetting of nominee for appointment as Principal Secretary, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 155, Clause 3, Paragraph B of the Constitution, approves the appointment of Mr. Joseph Wairago Irungu as Principal Secretary, State Department of Water and Sanitation. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 15, special motion, approval for appointment of Principal Secretary for State Department for Foreign Affairs.
Member for Chair, Katole Metito, Judah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations on the vetting of nominees for appointment as Principal Secretary, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, and pursuant to the provision of Article 155, Subclause 3B of the Constitution, approve the appointment of Ambassador Macharia Kamau as Principal Secretary, State Department for Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, Ambassador Kamau is a Kenyan citizen born in 1958 in Kiambu County. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in History and Economics from College of Worcester, Ohio, and a Master of Education degree on Social Policy and Planning from Harvard University, Massachusetts. He also attended an executive program on macroeconomic policy and management from the Harvard University, Massachusetts. Mr. Speaker, Ambassador Macharia Kamau has worked in the domain of international relations, international development, and international peace and security, and in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for over 35 years. He worked in the Caribbean and ran the UNICEF offices covering 16 countries and had incredible experience working with their governments. In 2008, he was appointed the United Nations Ambassador and worked for 7 years. In 2010, Mr. Speaker, he became the Kenyan representative in the United Nations, a position he held for over 7 years until his nomination as Principal Secretary by His Excellency, the President. Mr. Speaker, because all the other details are in the report, I just want to be brief and say the committee considered the nominees' field questionnaires pursuant to Section 6(8) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, his curriculum vitae, and having had his oral submission during the approval hearing, the committee is satisfied on his suitability for appointment as Principal Secretary, State Department for Foreign Affairs. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Article 155, subclause 3 of the Constitution, the committee recommends that the National Assembly approves the appointment of Ambassador Macharia Kamau as the Principal Secretary for the State Department for Foreign Affairs and urge this House to approve it. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request the member for Mosop, Honorable Vincent Way, to second.
Honourable members, I wish other chairmen could. You see now the benefit of experience. Brief, to the point. The issues which are relevant for the House. The report is already here. Please follow suit. Honourable Tuwei.
Asante sana Bwana Spika. Mimi pia nimesimama kwa hoja la kuunga mkono kuteuliwa kwake Balozi Macharia Kamau kwa wadhifa wa katibu katika Wizara ya Nchi za Nje. Wakati tulipokuwa tukidhibitisha haya, tulikuta kwamba Ambassador Macharia hako na ufasaha na maelewano kati ya viungo mbalimbali za kimataifa na hapa nchini. Tulipata ya kwamba yeye ndiye mwanzilishi wa kampuni ambayo tunaita kwa sasa Ransirax, ambaye ni kampuni ambayo imefana hapa nchini kwa kazi ambayo sisi wote tunajua ni ya kupiga chapa. Ya pili ni kwamba Ambassador alitufurahisha sana
the names of those nominees, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Patrick Ishohi was nominated to represent the Public Service Commission under Article 171, 2G, as I said earlier. Professor Olive Mukenda, Mr. Speaker, represented the public under Article 171, 2H, and Felix Koskei, again representing the public. Mr. Speaker, sir, the members, the nominees for those three positions in the JC, Mr. Speaker, appeared before the Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. And Mr. Speaker, sir, we were able to consider the issues, Mr. Speaker, that are well spelled out in Section 7 of the Public Appointments and Parliamentary Approvals Act of 2011, and that is the issues on the procedure used to arrive at the nominees, any constitutional or statutory requirement relating to the office in question, the suitability of the nominee for appointment proposed with due regard as to whether the nominee's abilities, experience, and qualities meet the needs of the body to which the nominee is made. Mr. Speaker, these are very critical constitutional issues because, Mr. Speaker, these three members are supposed to serve in the Judicial Service Commission, which is a constitutional commission, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, the committee considers the procedure used to arrive at the nominee under Article 252. And, Mr. Speaker, the committee, because of time, Mr. Speaker, I want to confirm to the House that Section 15(2) of the Judicial Service Commission provides that where the nominees are to be made by a body specified under Article 171(2)(g) of the Constitution, the nominating body shall submit the names of the nominees to the President. Mr. Speaker, those three nominees, one representing the public, two the public, and one Public Service Commission, were indeed forwarded to the President, Mr. Speaker, after which the one from the Judicial Service Commission, those names were forwarded. And so, Mr. Speaker, we are satisfied that that provision of the Constitution was complied with. Mr. Speaker, regarding the regional representation and ethnic diversity, Mr. Speaker, the committee considered the list of nominees proposed for the appointment as members of the Judicial Service Commission and noted that if the nominee were all approved, the composition of the commission, Mr. Speaker, would reflect the regional and ethnic diversity of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, again, complying with that constitutional requirement.
Member for Kitui Central wants to say something, contribute.
No, Mr. Speaker, I want to contribute to this motion.
Yes.
And thank you very much for giving me the chance, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Judicial Service Commission is one of the constitutional commissions, and it is very, very important because it serves the third arm of government, Mr. Speaker. Just as a commission you chair, Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Service Commission serves another arm of government. So this is very important commission, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, as a house in economics, Mr. Speaker, this lady has moved to this university from a very low level to an international university, Mr. Speaker. And I'm just imagining, Mr. Speaker, that by her joining this important commission, that she will come with the same energy, the same vision to this commission, so that judiciary, as an institution, Mr. Speaker, will actually deliver on Kenyans and more so access to justice, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, looking to Mr. Patrick Gichoi, all of us who have interacted with the Parliament for many years, Mr. Speaker, know Patrick Gichoi was once a clerk of this important house, Mr. Speaker. This gentleman, I've interacted with him, Mr. Speaker, even in our Committee on Administration of Justice, and Mr. Speaker, he brings into this commission a lot of experience. And the good thing, Mr. Speaker, is Gichoi, having interacted with politicians like us for many years, maybe this will be the right link between Parliament and judiciary, because he understands us as honorable members, and he also will be now the other side of judiciary, so that the small misunderstanding, Mr. Speaker, between the judiciary and the Parliament at times can easily be sorted when we have commissioners who appreciate us. And, Mr. Speaker, that's why I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker. The ruling you did yesterday in terms of the petition, Mr. Speaker, is a landmark, Mr. Speaker. As a house, we should never be seen to be antagonizing other institutions which are at our level. Judiciary is another arm of government. We are the second arm of government and then the executive. And, Mr. Speaker, anytime we seem to be like we are protecting the independence of the judiciary and our own independence and promoting interdependence, Mr. Speaker, because that must be there. Mr. Speaker, that is very good for this nation. And, Mr. Speaker, I see these names, Patrick Gichoi, Mungenda, and Mr. Felix Koskei. Mr. Speaker, I'm assured that judiciary will be in safe hands, and issues with the judiciary, Mr. Speaker, will go a long way in supporting Kenyans, and more so, Kenyans being able to access justice, which has really been not very accessible to majority of the people we represent, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few comments, I want to wish these commissioners well as they join the rest of the commissioners. And, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge honorable members in this house that as we move forward, honorable members, I think it's important that we all respect independent of these institutions, the three arms of government, because none of them can perform without each other, but we all have clear mandates as institutions, and we must be seen to be also carrying out our mandate even as we move forward. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Well, members, looks like there's nobody desirous. That's contributing, but I was doing a head count to make sure that we have quorum for me to proceed to put the question, which I hereby do, that this House adopts a report of the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs on the vetting of nominees for appointment as members of the Judicial Service Commission laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 27, 2018, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 171, Clause 2 of the Constitution, approves the appointment of the following members to the Judicial Service Commission. 1, and Article 171, Clause 2 paragraph G of the Constitution, Mr. Patrick Ishoi, CBS. Roman 2, under Article 171, Clause 2, paragraph B of the Constitution, A, Professor Olive Mugenda, and B, Mr. Felix Kosgei. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 18, motion, adoption of the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the budget policy statement.
The Honorable Kimani Ichung'wa, Chair of Budget and Appropriations Committee. And of course, I would expect that as this report is being a Public Accounts Committee, is Chair of Public Investments Committee, all those chairs, they need to be present. If there is any one report that they really should not, I don't know, they cannot even be saying to be in any other meeting or taking tea. They can't take tea the whole day. We also take tea. But we can't take tea from 3:30 p.m. So I just want to urge that it is so important that when we're discussing the budget policy statement, because I'm aware all chairs of departmental committees have had a chance to appear before this committee. They should be here. All of them, and indeed even members of that committee, the vice chairs of the various committees should be all present. You see, and that's why when sometimes I have to make commendation, I have to do it. I really encourage members to take the example said by the Honorable Kosing, the chair of Transport Committee. Throughout debate on the Rose Bill, the Honorable Kosing never left the chamber. He said that the Honorable Kosing doesn't take tea or water or whatever are those other things that other members want, other chairs go to do. Surely, unless there's, well, I don't know, maybe they are not ready to be chairs of those committees. And if they are not, then I would encourage the membership to think quickly and see how best to have proper leadership, so that the issues that are going to be raised by the Chair of Budget and Appropriations Committee also are addressed by the chairs and the vice chairs and the membership. Honorable Ichung'wa, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And on that note, Mr. Speaker, let me begin by congratulating those chairs and vice chairs who have taken their time to be here, and encourage other chairs of the other departmental committees to also join. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, and as required under Section 25, subsection 7 of the Public Finance Management, this is the first BPS prepared under the second term of the Jubilee administration, and also at the commencement of the third medium-term plan, MTP3, of the Kenya Vision 2030. It builds on the 5 pillars of the economic transformation agenda and achievements of the government over the last 5 years, and sets the pace for key policies, priority programs, and reforms which will be implemented over the next 5 years. That's 2018 to 2022, to enhance job creation and improve the quality of life of Kenyans at large. Mr. Speaker, the committee in our deliberations is concerned that MTP3, which comprises development programs to help achieve the Vision 2030 in a timely manner, and whose policies should inform the BPS and underline the implementation of the Big Four plan, has not yet been released. This makes it more difficult for us as a House to ensure that the policies underpinning the next budget are informed by the national agenda through the MTP3. Mr. Speaker, the format and content of the budget policy statement should be in line with provisions of the various relevant legal instruments, such as the Public Finance Management Act 2012, the Public Finance Management Regulations of 2015, and our own standing orders. In reviewing the BPS, the committee established that to a large extent, the 2018 BPS has complied with the provisions of the law and has provided most of the required information. However, Mr. Speaker, there were concerns with regard to some information not being provided, and in particular, The committee observed that, contrary to the provisions of the law, and in support of efficient planning and budgeting, the BPS should have included a list of all the projects, giving their details of their financing, as well as a list of all pending bills. Regulation 27(1)(f), which provides that a summary of programs that are of national interest in the following financial year be included, ideally includes the details of capital expenditure, which should include a list of projects. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, the committee noted that the ceiling for the development expenditure and personnel spending of the national government budget approved by Parliament are not binding to the 2017 BPS, as the case should be. This is contrary to PFM Regulation 27(5). Mr. Speaker, the spirit of this binding was so as to ensure that the medium-term expenditure framework becomes a